So we are one of the top universities in the world. We're one of the top 2 public universities in the United States. This is the full Block M. You're getting the full deal here. And the only difference is you won't necessarily be able to go to all 7 home football games. Graduates of this degree are fully vested members of our alumni community, removing the constraint of having to travel and live in Ann Arbor. It's just not practical for a vast population of potential students, but still being able to benefit from that world-class expertise is an incredible thing.
I think that what's exciting about data science right now is that it can be used across sectors. So whether you are interested in healthcare or education or work with Silicon Valley companies, all of those areas can be informed by data. And that's part of why when we're dealing with high stakes areas like healthcare and education, that ethical use of data becomes so important, and our care to make sure that we aren't biased is important.
Hello, Chuck here. We're in Milan, Italy. Hello, Chuck here. We are here in Paris, France. Well, hello. We are at Bletchley Park. Here we are in Orlando. Here we are in
So my name is Charles Severance. I am a clinical professor at the University of Michigan School of Information. I am now, by far, the most dominant Python class in the whole world, touching over 2 million lives. And you might say, why is that? Well, I claim it's because of the assessments. If you end up doing my homework for 2 hours, you're doing the job you're supposed to eventually do. I mean, my homework is job-ready skills, right? I mean, I don't have homework that is a waste of time just so I can make it hard for you. So I hope that when you participate in this new master's online degree, that you are as excited as I am. I'm excited to be part of it. I'm excited to see something that I consider completely next generation in terms of approach to teaching. So I really hope that someday we meet and someday you can tell me what you think of this particular experience and to see if you saw it as wonderful as I believe that it's going to be. Go Blue.
The maths program provides the rigorous and innovative curriculum to all the students who are interested in becoming an applied data scientist. You will leave here with the portfolio that proves that you can do end-to-end applied data science and you can apply these techniques you have learned to real-world problems. And we're super excited to meet with you, to work with you, and to collaborate with you. Go Blue!
Hello, welcome to the University of Michigan School of Information webinar on our new Applied Master's Degree in Data Science. I am Amy Humkus-Hayes, Assistant Director of Academic Program Development and MADS team member, and I'm enthused to let my colleague introduce herself as we talk to you for about an hour today about the new MADS program.
Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Weiner. I'm the Assistant Director for Recruitment and Admissions here at the School of Information, and excited to have this new online Master of Applied Data Science program as part of our degree offerings here at the School of Information. So happy to talk more about the different application requirements as you're possibly and hopefully considering applying, and Amy's going to be answering a lot of programmatic questions too that you have about kind of our program and our offerings and what this degree will actually look like for you.
Wonderful, thank you, Rachel. So as Rachel indicated, we're happy to answer any and all questions that are related to the MADS degree. And in fact, we have another person that you can't see that's in the room. Her name is Caitlin, and she's going to be giving us our questions today. So I have my phone here with me, not because I'm in fact checking my social media accounts, but actually because I am getting the questions this way so we can ensure that we answer them. So if you have questions, I welcome you to make comments in our YouTube live event, and we'll be answering them throughout our hour together. Before we do that though, I do want to give Rachel an opportunity to talk a little bit more about our admissions criteria in detail, because as you can all imagine, we get a lot of really good questions about the admissions process for the new MADS degree. So Rachel, can you walk us through with some level of detail what the application requirements are?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So the application requirements are also listed on our website, so do feel free to check back there as you have additional questions. But the ones that we will be looking at for the fall 2019 admitting cycle is that you will have completed the application itself. So there's a number of demographic questions that you would be answering within the application system. It is entirely online, so very easy for you to begin, come back to, and ultimately submit directly from online. So all of the materials that I'm about to mention can be uploaded right through that online application session or online application system. So you will be uploading your resume. So that could include any number of professional, academic, or co-curricular or volunteer leadership opportunities that you might have taken part in. So I'll talk a little bit more about our holistic review process, but even within each piece, we want you to be able to demonstrate your whole self. And so a resume could be one opportunity for you to highlight a variety of different areas within your background for the admissions review committee. We also have transcripts, so there are several sections for you to be able to upload unofficial copies of your transcripts directly into that application system. You will only need to supply official transcripts if offered admission, so this helps to expedite a lot of that processing for you to not have to request external documents or pay for external documents for this review session or this review cycle. So uploading directly into the system is the easiest way for those transcripts of any degree that you have received or are currently enrolled in. There is also essays. So there are several essays. A few of them are embedded in the application itself, which are short essay prompts that really get at more about your particular interests within the field, your particular interest in applying for this particular degree here at the School of Information and Applied Data Science. So several prompts that get at more of your academic interests and professional pursuits. And then the other essay that you would be uploading is a personal statement. So this is a little bit more of an opportunity for you to highlight anything about you personally, whether that's through your background, your different identities that you might hold, and what really motivates you to pursue this graduate degree here with us. So that prompt is embedded within the application and also can be found on our website if you want to kind of get a look at what some of these prompts actually are before you start typing them out. And then finally, there are letters of recommendation. We require 3 letters of recommendation for your application. These could be any combination of professional and academic references. So these could be people, we do encourage you to find people who know you and can speak to your interests and skills as it relates to pursuing this degree. And so however that might kind of be a combination for you, it can be that mixture of academic and professional. For those who are non-native English speakers, there is a English language proficiency test requirement. We prefer the TOEFL, however, can accept an IELTS score. So the TOEFL scores can be submitted directly through the ETS service, which is can be sent to our university code, which is 1839. Also on our website if you want to reference that back. There are several ways where students are eligible to waive that TOEFL requirement, and those are listed in more detail on our website too. So if you feel that you meet a potential criteria to waive that TOEFL or English language proficiency requirement, feel free to check that out and send us an email, and we can let you know how to go about waiving that. And finally, I just want to be clear that there is no additional standardized test on the front end as you are applying. So there is no GRE requirement, there is no other standardized test requirement for the application process itself. And then I will mention that there are a few assessments after the application cycle, so I will let my colleague Amy answer a little bit more about some of those assessments after you've been conditionally admitted.
Great, thank you. So to Rachel's good point, we will have our conditionally admitted applicants participate in 2 assessments in order for us to evaluate basic proficiency in 2 critical components of the program. So the first is Python. So we're looking for folks that have a basic level of Python knowledge and skill. And so the Python assessment will have 2 parts. The first will be a part where you're actually answering Python questions. So these could include multiple choice, true and false, or fill in the blank questions about Python. And then the second second is a programming assignment in Jupyter Notebooks, which is part of an infrastructure within Coursera, where the degree will also be hosted, where you'll be programming in Python. The second assessment is a statistics assessment, and that is roughly equivalent to an introduction statistics course in a college or university setting. So the goal is for us to be able to help our conditionally admitted applicants understand what level of proficiency we'd like to see in Python and statistics in order to be successful in the program, as well as to give our conditionally admitted folks some access to what we are thinking and kind of feeling about when we say, what does it mean to have a basic level Python and statistics proficiency? I will say the good news is that we have some sample questions on our website right now that you may access, so you can get a clearer understanding of how we are scaffolding those questions, the content of the questions, and the topics that they cover. And we will also have practice assessments that conditionally admitted folks can take before they take the actual assessments in Coursera. So the practice assessments will be hosted in the Coursera platform, just like the actual assessments. And that's because we want to mimic the look and feel of the actual assessments and give you an opportunity to fully practice before you actually participate in the assessments themselves. So Rachel, we've talked a lot about already application process and admissions criteria, and I was hoping that you could give our applicants a clearer sense to what it means when we say holistic application review. So what is it that we are looking for when we review applicants in a holistic way in the School of Information?
Yeah, thank you. So we do take that holistic approach, and for us what that means is that we are looking at all of the materials, so all of the pieces that I mentioned, and looking at them within context. So there's no one individual piece or material that is weighted more than another. We really do want to look at it as a whole picture. And so a couple ways that I like to think about that could relate to particular pieces. So we really want to, as I mentioned within your resume, for example, really feel that you can demonstrate who you are in all of the variety of areas, whether that's academic, professional, or in some of the personal or community efforts that you might take part in as well. And so we really are looking for, we have students who come from a variety of different backgrounds in all of our programs. So that's professional backgrounds, academic backgrounds, so many different types of people are represented in our programs. And so to know that there is no one size fits all, no one type of applicant that we are really looking for per se. And I think that another good example for how we consider holistic reviews. So I mentioned kind of the academic, the professional indicators. One piece that we get asked a lot about is as it relates to someone's academic background or their transcript. Whether you are currently enrolled in a program or have 15 plus years of experience, oftentimes people say that a lot of weight is given to a transcript or a GPA. And what we do is we look at that GPA as one piece, one indicator, but really do take that time to do a deeper dive within a transcript to say, what are the courses that someone has taken, how have they done in particular courses that better align with our understanding of your ability to succeed in this program. But even more than that as well is if you've had several years or more experience after a transcript might show, how does that balance, and what does that say about your abilities too, and what you might have learned within the field context versus within a classroom setting? We look at all of the different types of stories that a transcript might tell. So if your educational background, maybe you had some gaps, maybe there were some different aspects where you started on one path and then kind of realized within your second year or whenever it was that you had a different interest. So really wanting you to know that within a holistic review model that we have, we are looking at everything and all of that context that you would hopefully be providing within the application itself as well.
So it sounds like we really are deeply invested in ensuring that this degree and the students that make it up come from a number of diverse backgrounds and represent experiences and majors, for example, and by experiences both professional and personal that represent a wide swath of different careers or topics, for example.
Absolutely.
It's wonderful.
Absolutely.
Great. So related to Rachel's questions or Rachel's comments about how we construct a cohort and the things that we look at, we are getting some questions about what it looks like for students to engage one another once they're in the program. So we talk so much about the value of having a diverse student body, and then what's the program's obligation or responsibility to ensure that students have an opportunity to communicate with each other. So as you can imagine, as MADS program staff, this is something that we're thinking deeply about in how we create opportunities for for students to collaborate with and communicate with one another, as well as to collaborate and connect with program staff, and of course, critically, the faculty that are going to be teaching maths courses. So the good news is that we're creating a number of different ways in which students will have an opportunity to engage one another. Some of the opportunities that we're creating are around how we enable communication. So we will have an integrated communication platform that's part of the degree, where students will be able to meet with one another in either formal or informal contexts to communicate on maths courses, questions, content, or around data science topics that they're particularly interested in. So for example, we've had some folks come to us who say, I'm really interested in data as it applies to learning analytics and how we treat data within a context of education, for example. Where we have others who may say, well, I'm really interested in data as it relates to sports, for example, and sports analytics. And then of course we have our folks that say, I'm really committed to pursuing a career at the intersection of data and finance, for instance. And so our sincere hope is to use the integrated platform that we have within the maths ecosystem to ensure that those students have an opportunity to find one another and have real meaningful conversations around how they're conceptualizing and putting into practice data science at the intersection of those different disciplines. I will also say that we will have numerous opportunities for students to connect with faculty and staff in the program. So for example, we will have faculty hosting live office hours every week as part of the courses that they are teaching. As we've indicated before, one of the benefits of the maths program is that we have core UMSI faculty teaching the courses. So the very same faculty that you would interact with here as a residential student in the city of Ann Arbor, you will have access to as a distance student living, for example, in Los Angeles, California. So that's a really exciting thing, that you have access to those same faculty and that they'll be joining you in live and recorded office hour sessions every week of the course. We will also have course instructional aids that will foster learning and answer questions and work on grading assignments and do a number of different things that are related to the course and of course related to the success of our students. So we're really hoping that the combination of having faculty and course instructional aids will create an infrastructure that provides a lot of support for our students. And then finally, as math students, you'll also have access to all of the resources that residential UMSI students have access to, just in different delivery mechanisms. So for example, we've talked often about how our career team is really excited to work with math students and is thinking about ways to take the infrastructure that we have here on campus around how we provide career development and professional development support, from something as simple as a resume critique to as complicated as working with employers, and how we provide those same set of services to our distance learners. So the good news is that we're going to have a number of ways in which both formal and informal, for students and faculty and staff within the UMSI to work with and to collaborate with one another. So relatedly, we often are asked about the process with which courses are evaluated, or how students will be evaluated in courses. So there are a couple of answers to this question. One is that the faculty who are creating these courses, just like faculty that create residential courses, do get to decide the assessment schemas for themselves. So that means in some courses you may have weekly assignments that lead up to a culminating exam. In other classes you may have a project, for example, that you do, and that may be the bulk of the grade. So there's no one way in which we're evaluating students, and there's no one exam mechanism that we're using, for example, but you can be assured that all of our faculty are thinking really smartly about how to assess effectively in an online learning environment, and are committed to being transparent with students from the outset of the course around how they'll be evaluated throughout the course. So we would assume, for example, that because this is a data science program and Python is the programming language, that you will be doing a number of programming assignments, right, and that those are hosted in Coursera, for example. But we would also assume that when you're putting into practice those skills and a synthesis experience, so for instance, one of our project-based learning courses, that you may in fact be doing a project as opposed to taking an exam. So really there's going to be a combination of approaches that we use, but students will know at the outset of every course which approach they will be taking. So it is true that our credit system is different, and Rachel and I have talked a lot about those differences. Yes. So for everyone that's listening today and watching us, Do know, if this is not familiar to you, that the MADS program actually is mostly 1 credit, 1 month long courses that will total 34 credits to earn the degree. So that is a new model. It's new for us, and it's new for a lot of our learners. But we really drew a lot of our inspiration in how successful massive online open courses are with how they engage learners in more concise learning opportunities, and took some of that inspiration and applied it to the curriculum. So I should say, it doesn't mean, for example, that the courses will be any less rigorous. It doesn't mean that they'll be any less comprehensive. You know, in fact, they will be, but over the total of 34 credits, as opposed to having a more traditional, largely 3 credit, you know, kind of 14, 15-week course. So we are hoping to, and will in fact, supply support to students who are working with us in this new model. We want everyone to gain comfort in their ability to navigate it successfully. So although it's going to be new for you and new for us, we are deeply committed to ensuring that it works for everyone. So Rachel, people are often curious about what our admitting class might look like. From an admissions perspective, can you tell us a little bit more about how we construct a cohort, or kind of what we think about in terms of numbers?
Sure. So we are excited to really have the same type of diversity of perspective and experiences that we have seen in our residential programs also be reflected in what we've seen so far in our Master of Applied Data Science program. So we are really looking for that kind of broad stroke perspective. Because it's an applied degree, we know and recognize that people are coming from a variety of backgrounds, as I mentioned, professional or academic, and you might be wanting to apply that within a variety of different contexts. And so in thinking about how we are constructing that cohort, we really are being mindful of having representation of different ideas, different thoughts, different experiences and perspectives, coming from a variety of different locations, so geographic locations as well as years of experience within industry, and as Amy and I have both mentioned, in terms of your majors or the studies that you might have had academically prior to pursuing this degree. So lots of different really cool and exciting perspectives being represented in the applications that we've seen thus far. I do expect that within this first cohort, we are shooting for somewhere around 150 students. And so, Amy, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about what that might look like. But we are looking for an opportunity for you to have that kind of more close-knit experience where class sizes are going to be of a certain size to allow you to have those really meaningful opportunities and connections both across and within the school and within this degree program specifically. So that's kind of where we're looking right now with a cohort size for fall 2019.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that, because that's exactly right. We're trying to create community within our online learning environment. And so in order to do that, we're really sensitive to admitting a class that feels like it's a good large size class, but not so large, for example, that we lose the capacity to do that. And we also, as we've indicated before, are going to be continuing to build the program as we run the program. And so what that means is for our initial incoming class, all of our students will be considered part-time and will be finishing the degree in at least 24 months, could be longer, but really can't be shorter, because we're doing both simultaneously. So we would envision a future state, for example, where students could take the program in a shorter period of time, for instance, as little as 12 months, and then where the students who perhaps are working full-time or have a number of other responsibilities that would enable them to, their needs would be better met in a part-time capacity, could do that and in fact take the program for a number of years and then finish it. So the objective is really to reach both folks that want to do it full-time or part-time, but do know for our incoming cohort, we're really thinking about size in so much as how we create experience, how we learn from what happens when we launch courses and students take them, as well as being sensitive to the fact that you have to complete the initial cohort has to complete within about 24 months or longer. So what that might mean for someone that's thinking about, well, what would be better for me, to do a part-time or full-time? My sense is that you my sense is that you could do either, but knowing that if you are doing it full-time, when that's an option, it will still be a significant workload, not a manageable one, but certainly a significant workload given the cadence of the courses and the number of assessments and assignments that each will contain. Where my thinking is that people who are working full-time, for example, may defer to a part-time model. You don't have to, but what I think is great about this degree is that you really easily can and still make great progress towards completing the degree in a timely way. So Rachel, as you could imagine, we got a lot of questions about assessments. And so one of the questions that we got is around whether or not you can take them more than once. So we are deeply committed to ensuring that people can pass the assessments. And so we will have multiple opportunities for people to take them. We will also have communication channels with folks between them and our office in the Office of Academic and Student Affairs here in the University of Michigan School of Information to ensure that in an instance where something's not working and perhaps it's a technology issue, perhaps it's a proficiency issue, whatever it may be, that our conditionally admitted applicants have an opportunity to communicate with us. And my understanding is that as an admissions team, we like to actually be pretty available to folks in answering their questions as they come up in the process. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Absolutely. So for those of you who are joining us today, it's possible that this was the first time you've heard about us, but it's also more likely that you've engaged with us in some other way. So we are absolutely committed to having and continuing conversations with you all as prospective students all throughout the way. So for those of you who are just starting to think about, should I be applying? Do I want to apply? Is this the right direction? To those then folks who have started an application and have questions within that space, to those who have submitted an application and want to stay connected about the process and the timeline and different pieces, and then all the way through obviously to having been conditionally admitted and support around those assessments and then that ultimate admission. So as Amy had mentioned, we do have Caitlin Rye who's with us in the room, and all of us here are always available via our email, which is umsi.mads, M-A-D-S, @umich.edu. And so we are always available wherever you may be in that process to stay connected about your questions and any next steps that you may have.
Great, thank you. And of course, our website also has lots of really great information on it. And that's a source that we often refer people to because, in fact, if they have a basic question about our admissions process, about the program overview, even where to find a link to the application, all of those things are accessible from our website.
Absolutely.
And that URL is UMSI. Thank you.
.umich.edu.
Thank you.
Yep.
Glad I
Which
deferred
I
to you
think
on that one.
our team member Jeff is putting into the chat right
Perfect.
now too.
Perfect. So since we're on assessments, I'm going to answer a couple of additional questions about the assessments. So for example, one of the questions is, when will people get access to the actual assessments? Or when will our conditionally admitted folks get access? So the goal is that at conditional admittance, you get access to the assessments. So that's the objective. And then you would have, several weeks in which to take and pass those assessments. So we're setting up a process whereby we're giving our admitted students who do pass enough time to be onboarded to our program and to start their courses in September 2019 successfully, but at the same time give our conditionally admitted folks enough time to take the practice assessments, to prepare, and then of course to engage in multiple attempts in an instance where you need to pass the assessments. So relatedly, folks are curious, what does it mean to prepare successfully above and beyond participating in the practice questions or assessments? So generally speaking, we would encourage folks who want to get a sense for the kind of content that we are assessing to participate in one or two MOOCs on these two topics. So for example, the University of Michigan hosts a Statistics with Python MOOC. that anyone can take in the Coursera infrastructure. And so that's a great way for understanding how we think about statistics knowledge, as well as using statistics in a Python programming language. And then there's also a MOOC called Python 3 Programming, and that's a great opportunity for folks to brush up on or to be exposed to Python at that level. And that's really kind of the equivalent that we would say to the kinds of knowledge that we're testing for in the assessment. So we do encourage you to take one or both of those depending on your wants and needs. I will say that if you do those successfully, it is a positive thing in so much as your preparedness for the degree. It is not an equivalent to the assessment themselves. So in order to maintain an equitable process for all of our conditionally admitted students, we will require that everyone take the assessments, even if you've successfully passed the massive online open courses. So no matter whether you've taken them, the MOOCs or not, the expectation is that you do take and pass the assessments. So we are excited about having them go live. We know that lots of folks are feeling anxious about that. We are too, of course. Do know that that's coming sooner than later. But in the meantime, if you're curious what those questions will look like, again, both by content as well as by format, I do encourage you to check out si.umich.edu and go to the MADS page, and you'll see the sample assessment questions there. So now we're getting some questions about scholarships and when someone may hear about whether or not they've received scholarships. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about how we communicate those decisions?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I'll talk a little bit broadly first about sort of the financial aid opportunities that we do have. And we are unique in that we are offering every person who has applied being eligible to be reviewed for and receive scholarship offers. So that is anyone who may be an international applicant, anyone who's domestic, anyone who obviously is pursuing this part-time, since that is required of the first incoming cohort. And that is unique for us to be making sure that everyone is eligible to apply for those funding and is being reviewed for that funding at the time of application. There is no separate application required or any additional materials that are needed to be assessed for financial aid. All of those throughout that holistic process that I had mentioned, and all of the pieces that are listed out on our website are part of that review process for both admission and financial aid scholarships. And then to your other question about just sort of the mode of delivery for those decisions, applicants will be receiving an email with their decision. So that decision will come through an email to go check your portal to be able to allow you to have that opportunity to see all of the information, as Amy has mentioned. And then ultimately a scholarship decision would likely be made at a little bit of a later date. But we will be keeping you apprised of when the decisions have gone out. So if you have or have not received a scholarship at that time, you will know that that first round or that initial scholarship decision had been made, and then it can better allow you to have more information as you are making your decision.
So Rachel, just to be clear, because it sounds like what you're saying is that we don't send admission and scholarship decisions together, that generally we may send one and then the other.
Correct.
Okay.
A financial aid or scholarship decision would likely come after an admissions decision.
Great, thank you. So relatedly, we do have a couple of folks that are asking about when admissions decisions will be communicated. So we had one person, in fact, ask a very specific question, which I really appreciate, and that is that they had heard that decisions would be coming around the 15th of May. And so they were asking, if I don't hear something, does that mean I'm not admitted? And then we've had a few additional folks just inquire generally about when we think we'll communicate admissions decisions. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do work to have a 5 to 7 week turnaround by the time that you've submitted your application. So for those of you who have already submitted your application, we are continuing or have started that review process and do hope to have that 5 to 7 week turnaround for a decision. For those of you who might be applying in the coming weeks up until our June 1st deadline, that decision would likely be coming within a timeline probably a little bit shorter than the 5 to 7 weeks, just because we do have those assessments that we want to make sure you have access to, and course registration as well. But I assure you that we will be communicating throughout the entire time. So if you haven't heard anything, it just means a decision has not yet been made, and you will hear regardless. And if we are taking a little bit longer than we expected, we will also send a message about that as well, just so that you can be updated and you'll receive some communication from us at all of the different points, so we can let you know kind of where we're at.
Great. So this is something that I think that at least in conversations you and I have had, we're still kind of working through. But we already have some folks that are inquiring about what happens if they're not admitted. So I know that that's not something that we can say, well, this is absolutely the process, because we haven't quite figured that out yet as a new program who are just starting to accept our first round of applicants. But can you speak to where our thinking may be about kind of what happens if in an instance where you're not admitted?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say in general, if you are not offered admission, we will have opportunities probably a little bit later in the summer or maybe into the fall, where if you are interested in reapplying or wanting to better understand or see how you can better prepare for an application cycle in the future, that we would be happy to meet with you and discuss different areas where you could continue to grow or develop certain skills or experiences to better demonstrate that for a review committee. So we are absolutely able to meet with you, especially if you do intend to reapply for a future cycle, so that we can keep those lines of communication open if you remain interested for a potential future cycle.
And meet for our purposes may mean, for example, talking to someone on the phone
or
doing a video conference.
Meeting broadly defined.
Yes.
So yes, it could be over phone, even through email. We've had some good exchanges with applicants about just sort of the different ways that you could improve an application for a future application.
That's great. So Rachel, as you can imagine, we're getting some very specific questions around things like amount of scholarships, number of scholarships. And my sense is that we don't, again, necessarily have firm answers to those questions, but also that we're really willing, again, to kind of point folks into lots of directions in so much as how they can fund their degree. And so could you speak to that a little bit more?
Absolutely. So the funding, as you've mentioned, we don't have a clear sense. We do know that we will be offering anywhere from partial to full tuition scholarships for folks who have applied. And then from there, in terms of quantity, we don't have any sort of benchmarking metrics, as this is our first year. So, but I do know that we will be making sure that all of these information and all of these data points become available in the future. But then in terms of, you were just talking about, the different types of ways. Yeah. So funding from us at UMSI, so UMSI funding is just one sort of, one avenue that you could consider for funding your degree. And we do have a lot of great resources that are listed on our website that I encourage you to dive a little bit deeper into, because a variety of them have various eligibility and different criteria. I think that one of the things that Amy might have mentioned today or at an earlier time you might have heard, so this is a University of Michigan degree. So this is a degree program where you will be receiving a diploma at the end that gives no distinction of it being an online. It is simply a UMSI, a School of Information degree. And many of our scholarships that you might see, the eligibility requirements, do require that you be a degree-seeking student. So in some ways where other online opportunities you might have pursued were not covered in that way, we've seen a lot of students still be successful in receiving external funding for different scholarships that might be either within your own arena, so it could be through your company, it could be through sort of your regional area or your international area, wherever it might be, and receiving funding from that source as well. There are the opportunities to apply for federal or FAFSA financial aid as well for any domestic applicants. So we do encourage you to pursue that as an additional piece.
So shifting gears a little bit, we did get a question about taking non-TOEFL language test outcomes. So for example, the IELTS. If in fact someone does submit one versus the other, does that weigh on how you make an admissions decision or a financial or a scholarship consideration?
No, not necessarily. So we say TOEFL is preferred just because it is broadly what we see most often. And so if you've already taken the IELTS score, definitely I would say don't plan to try to retake and spend additional money and time on a TOEFL. We can accept that IELTS. We do have criteria that it has to be, both scores have to be within 2 years. having been taken within 2 years. So do take a look at when you last took that and make sure that it is still eligible for that requirement there. But the IELTS score can still be considered. We just have more of that TOEFL.
So we're getting some good questions about the difference between our program and other data science programs because, as you know, there are data science programs that are coming to fruition in a number of different institutions. And so, rightfully so, people are curious, what makes the University of Michigan Master of Applied Data Science in the School of Information unique? So one is we're a bit biased because you're talking to two University of Michigan alums. And so we have a lot of really positive things to say about being a member of this community. And in fact, one of the key benefits is simply the size of our alumni community. So when you have over 500,000 living alumni, you will surely find folks to say go blue to all over the world.
Anywhere you go.
Exactly. And in fact, we would say that one of the competitive advantages of our program over others is the strength of that community in so much as the personal affordances it provides you, as well as really critically the professional ones. So one of the advantages that you have being a University of Michigan student and then alum is access to lots of other alum who are living and working in companies and organizations that are highly attractive all over the world. So when you think about where might I pursue my data science degree, we would encourage you not only to think about the kinds of courses that you're taking or the kind of the curriculum writ large, but we would also encourage you to think about the outcomes and where you might end up using those skills with an employer somewhere throughout the world. And our argument would be that the University of Michigan has a distinct advantage in that department, given the size of and reputation of our alumni network. Other things that really distinguish our program as compared to others, one is in the applied nature of our degree. So whereas some programs are taking a more theoretical approach to how they teach data science, others may be taking a more computational approach to how they're teaching data science. Ours is really focused on how you apply data science skills to real world problems. So that application is going to come through in a couple of different ways. One is in the way that we structure the curriculum. So we often talk about the maths degree as being end-to-end data science. So you will have access to what it means to formulate data science problems and experiments and how to collect data and scrub and that data, clean it and run it successfully, all the way through how you disseminate and communicate data science results. So that work spans that end-to-end approach, and that's really something that we're seeing as being different from a number of other programs. So you will have the opportunity to think about what does it mean to be an effective data science from the outset of a data science problem through really deep, rich, and broad data science analysis and skill, all the way through how you present rich data science visualizations, either to other data scientists or equally importantly, to lay folks who really may have very little data science knowledge, for example. Another way that we're thinking about and acting on difference in how we are presenting our degree as compared to other institutions is who creates and teaches our courses. So one of the things that we've said is really critical about the maths degree is that it is being presented by core UMSI faculty. So the very same faculty that you would take data science courses with in the residential program are the faculty that are creating and teaching the courses in the online program. So that means that you're going to have access to some of the most well-known or published or experts in data science throughout the world. So those will include people like Charles Severance, or who we call Dr. Chuck, who has the #1 Python MOOC in the world and has taught millions of people how to successfully program in Python, to folks like Xiaozhu Mi, who is known for his capacity in research in data mining, to folks like Yan Chen, who is one of our economists in the School of Information, who does really wonderful work on experiment design and analysis, just to mention a few of those fabulous data science faculty. You'll also see some of the folks that are in our MOOC atmosphere teaching some of the maths courses. So those would include people like Chris Brooks, who's a well-known data scientist in learning analytics, and Kevin Collins-Thompson and Paul Resnick, who are two additional faculty that are well-versed in how to employ successful data science using Python programming language. So we're really excited actually about the faculty that are going to be teaching these courses. Another way in which you can think about our program as it compares to others is in the level of service that we're going to provide. So when we think about what does it mean to be a full UMSI student, we think not only about the rigorous courses, but we also think about the really wonderful co-curricular learning opportunities. And we will have an opportunity for MAD students to participate in those if they live close to Ann Arbor by coming to campus, or if they live very far away from Ann Arbor and joining us either synchronously or asynchronously in online environments. So that may mean, for example, taking professional development workshops on design thinking and applying that to data science. It could mean meeting a group of UMSI students on a spring break trip where you use data science with a nonprofit organization. It may mean participating in a hackathon or a design jam where you're employing data science to real world problems. Or it could mean having access to a high profile speaker who is doing data science at an organization like Google or Amazon. So there's really lots of ways in which our MAD students will have access to those really wonderful opportunities. And as we mentioned before, they'll also have access to our career development office. And Rachel and I both work really closely with those folks, so we're excited about the kinds of opportunities that they have in store for our MAD students to not only develop professionally and present themselves in a really compelling way, but also have access to employers. So when I think about what are the ways in which we distinguish our degree, you're getting, as Rachel indicated, a full University of Michigan degree, but I think equally, if not more importantly, you're also getting a full University of Michigan experience. That's exactly right. And access to this huge alumni network that's really excited to welcome you with open arms. So we do have a couple of questions about course schedule. And so one of those questions is around future application windows. So for those folks, and we've heard from some of them that are saying, I love what I'm hearing. I'm super excited about being a math student. I don't want to start in September 2019. What can we say to them, Rachel?
Yeah, so we are still working out the next definitive timeline for our cohort. So we do expect that in the coming years, we would have 3 admitting cycles. So someone could start in the fall, so in September, they could start in January or in May. We aren't certain now if that will be for this year, but we will be making sure that as long as you've indicated your interest with us, which you likely have if you're here joining us today and have received some communications, that we will let you know as soon as we do the next open cycle.
Great. So for those folks that are saying not now, what I'm hearing you say is that not only are we going to kind of communicate that information soon, but that we would say, do know it's coming.
Absolutely.
And feel comfortable waiting, because we're on the verge of being able to release that information, and we're really eager in the long term to accept MAD students at a more regular kind of, or I should say multiple times a year cadence, if that
Absolutely.
makes sense. That's excellent to hear. So once students are enrolled and they're taking MAD's courses, of course, they're interested to know what's the frequency with which you take the courses. So in our model, you could take up to 2 or 3 courses a month. And so that would be 3 credits a month, for example, up to 3 credits a month. Or you could take as few as 1 credit per month. And so you really have a lot of flexibility in so much as how many courses you decide to tackle at any given time. And you could decide, for example, to take 3 credits in September, and you could take 1 credit in October. So there's lots of flexibility in the program, and that's by design. So we want to enable students who have a variety of different other life commitments to opt into this program and feel comfortable navigating that flexibility, knowing that it could work for them. MAD's courses, like our residential programs, will run throughout the academic year. So what that means for us is that we have courses that will run from September through December. So new courses in September, October, November, and December. Then you'll have another set of courses in January, February, March, and April. So new courses again in each of those months. And then we will also have courses throughout our spring-summer semester. So that would include May, June, July, and August. So the expectation is that students may enroll in any, again, up to 3 credits a month throughout that academic year, noting that we run on the school's academic calendar, which divides the time that way. So September throughout December, January through April, and then May through August. So questions, of course, come up about fees, and we do hear from folks often who are interested in knowing how much it costs to be a MAD student. So for the 2019-2020 academic year, for State of Michigan residents, the tuition is about $932 per credit, and for non-State of Michigan residents, the fees are $1,243 per credit. So this does not include some fees that are going to be built into that model that we will be able to communicate with more specificity at a later date. But generally speaking, that's around what the cost will be. So for the total cost for the 34 credit degree would be $31,688 for in-state or State of Michigan residents and $42,262 for out-of-state or non-State of Michigan residents. Now, these are estimations. They're good estimations. I will say that our final tuition rates are approved by our Board of Regents, and that does not happen until June. But more or less, we are comfortable saying that this is the proposed tuition model for now, and we anticipate that that tuition model will be approved. Rachel, can you talk again about the GRE? Even though we're not requiring it, is it something that you would still recommend people submit?
Yeah, it's a good question. So no, we don't have any forum or way for you to submit that within the application. We don't ask for it, nor do we want to view it. So through our holistic application review process, we really determined that not only was that not the strongest indicator of someone's ultimate success, but it also further marginalized particular populations of students. And so part of our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts really allowed us to remove that entirely from consideration. So that is not something that we will need to receive, nor do we need to review it.
Excellent. So speaking of another part of our admissions process, letters of recommendation, can someone scan a letter instead of submitting one to the online portal, or can you have a letter submitted without the form?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I'm going to go into just a little bit more depth about those letters of recommendation. And so since the system itself allows you to indicate who those references are going to be for you, so there's 3 of them, and you can use that system, and it's often very, very easy for you to then be able to manage when someone has submitted their recommendation, when someone has started, or kind of has even opened it, so that you can continue to help manage them and give them nudges as you need to as the deadline approaches. And because of that, there are a certain number of folks or scenarios where someone is not able to submit through the system. And so we could work with you on a case-by-case basis of how to make sure that we receive that for you. What I will say blanketly, though, is that letter of recommendation does need to come directly from the writer. It can't be something that you supply us on their behalf. It would need to come directly from them. But again, we can give you all of that information to ensure that that recommender has all of the things that they would need to successfully submit that letter on your behalf, and we would then load it into the system for you.
Great, thank you. So let's say someone does everything they need to do, they submit all their application materials, they're accepted into the program. Can you just give us a little bit of insight into how tuition bills do get paid? So how do folks navigate that process? My understanding is that there's installment options. So for example, you can pay by the semester, you can pay throughout kind of different times in the year. So it's something that we will definitely communicate with more specificity once you're admitted. But I think what we're trying to say is that there's not a expectation that you pay for everything all in one shot, for example.
That is an option, but oftentimes folks will choose to do it in segments or in installments, yes. And that is something that as soon as you have been accepted and then also accept back, so choose to enroll and matriculate into the program, that is when the Central University of Michigan would start sending you notification. And usually that tuition, it happens closer to August. Or when classes start. So that's when you would start to see and be able to start determining which installment or which plan would work best for you in your situation.
And what I really appreciate about what you're saying is that there is a whole University of Michigan infrastructure and system that our students are also opting into when they matriculate as a MAD student. So for example, there is a student financials office, and that's actually who really manages kind of how tuition and when tuition is paid. I should also add that one of the things things that Rachel and I didn't discuss earlier, that's another advantage of being a math student, is access to that larger University of Michigan system. So there are a number of things that we're currently working on, ensuring that math students have access to. For those that are geographically close, that may mean things in our residential environment. For those that are not, it may mean things, having access to things in virtual ways. But long story short, do know that not only are you a student at the University of Michigan School of Information, which we're super excited about, but you'd also be a University of Michigan student, and so that gives you access to, and also means that you'll be interfacing with that larger system as well. So speaking of interacting with folks and systems, the questions have come up about, when we say career development, what do we mean? Like, what does that really entail at a more concrete level? So will, for example, math students get assistance in obtaining internships? And the answer is yes. So that would be something that our career development office works with students on, is obtaining internships. And so students in the MADS program will have access to those resources as well. Will they have the opportunity to attend on-campus job fairs? In an instance where you can attend an on-campus job fair, so let's say, for example, you live close to Ann Arbor or are coming here, then certainly you could attend one of our on-campus job fairs. In an instance where you can't do that, however, we are actively figuring out and determining how you may participate in a different way. So for example, that could mean a virtual fair, or it may mean resume drops with specific employers for math students. So rest assured, even if you don't live close to Ann Arbor or can't make it to an on-site fair, it does not mean that you won't have access to employers. In fact, you will have access. That access will look just a little bit different.
And I think one thing that I'll kind of echo on that is that, so the experience that we're going off of is what we have here in our residential programs. And what I can say about that is a variety of folks are coming in with various needs or interests or wants within that career development space. So maybe you're someone who is wanting to make a complete career change and are wanting to work with our career development office to determine how to craft a resume based on the experiences that you both had and are going to have and have had to make that look most attractive for employers in those spaces you're looking to. Others of you might be looking to advance within your current career or current space, and we have folks just like that in our residential programs too, and so they are able to kind of cater and craft their experiences with you to kind of give you that more individualized attention, as well as some of the broader bigger opportunities that are more open to School of Information students at large. So a lot of different awesome opportunities that they can kind of cater based on your interests and experiences and what you're hoping to gain from that interaction.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good insight. And in fact, we've also gotten a couple of folks who've said, well, what if I want to take this master's degree and then turn it into a PhD? You know, what if that becomes my career objective? So we don't have firm information to share about how that acts in practice, meaning we can't tell you yet, yes, this is exactly what happens after you get a master's degree and then decide to apply to PhD programs. But we would assume that if in fact and when folks are interested in that, because inevitably someone will be, that's another way in which we would anticipate that the school would offer you some support. It may be faculty guidance in so much as people that have done that before and have navigated that process successfully, and so they can do some mentoring with you as you navigate that process. It may mean, again, connecting with the career development office to create an academic resume or to work on the kind of writing that you would supply for a PhD program, or it may be finding researchers to work with in order to bolster your application for success in a PhD program. So although we don't have concrete information to share, certainly we recognize that that's another set of career outcomes that at least a small subset of our students might be interested in. Well, it's 1:29 p.m. and we were slated to at Eastern time, I should say, Eastern Daylight Savings Time, and we are scheduled to end at about 1:30 p.m. So I did get one final question, which is around, can you take terms off or months off? So yes, in this model, you can do that. There are implications that we would want to discuss with you, but it certainly is possible in an instance where you may need to take some time off, for example. So we are very happy that you joined us today. We had a lot of fun over this last hour discussing all things MADS related, and we're certainly looking very much forward to reviewing your application materials. So please do stay in touch with us at umsi.edu. mads@umich.edu, and we will look forward to reviewing your application materials. Go Blue!
Go Blue!
So we're one of the top universities in the world. We're one of the top 2 public universities in the United States. This is the full Block M. You're getting the full deal here. And the only difference is you won't necessarily be able to go to all 7 home football games. Graduates of this degree are fully vested members of our alumni community, removing the constraint of having to travel and live in Ann Arbor. It's just not practical for a vast population of potential students, but still being able to benefit from that world-class expertise is an incredible thing.
I think that what's exciting about data science right now is that it can be used across sectors. So whether you are interested in healthcare or education or work with Silicon Valley companies, all of those areas can be informed by data. And that's part of why when we're dealing with high stakes areas like healthcare and education, that ethical use of data becomes so important, and our care to make sure that we aren't biased is important.
Hello, Chuck here. We're in Milan, Italy. Hello, Chuck here. We are here in Paris, France. Well, hello. We are at Bletchley Park. Here we are in Orlando. Here we are in
So my name is Charles Severance. I am a clinical professor at the University of Michigan School of Information. I am now, by far, the most dominant Python class in the whole world, touching over 2 million lives. And you might say, why is that? Well, I claim it's because of the assessments. If you end up doing my homework for 2 hours, you're doing the job you're supposed to eventually do. I mean, my homework is job-ready skills, right? I mean, I don't have homework that is a waste of time just so I can make it hard for you. So I hope that when you participate in this new master's online degree, that you are as excited as I am. I'm excited to be part of it. I'm excited to see something that I consider completely next generation in terms of approach to teaching. So I really hope that someday we meet and someday you can tell me what you think of this particular experience and to see if you saw it as wonderful as I believe that it's going to be. Go Blue.
The maths program provides the rigorous and innovative curriculum to all the students who are interested in becoming an applied data scientist. You will leave here with the portfolio that proves that you can do end-to-end applied data science and you can apply these techniques you have learned to real-world problems. And we're super excited to meet with you, to work with you, and to collaborate with you. Go Blue!